Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know, it has been a little bit since I made a video. Last year was kind of crazy. I had a lot of transitions with jobs, but now things have kind of mellowed out a little bit, and I think I'm in a place where I can start making regular videos on this channel. I'm not going to make any promises that it'll be like 3 videos a week or anything, but my goal is to make at least 1 video a week. So 4 videos a month seems pretty doable, especially if I can bulk film like I can today. So this first video that I have for you guys, since forever, is going to be my February wrap-up. In the month of February, I did read 5 books, one of which I've been reading since last year and I happen to finish in February, and that is the first one I want to talk about, and it is Penduka by Joy McMillan. I like to read self-help or personal development books, and a lot of them that I read do have a Christian faith background to them. This one is no exception. Joy McMillan is actually a local author to us. She's a dear friend of mine, and she released this book last year. There was such hype in our group for this book, and I knew I was going to have to read it as soon as it came out. So my dearest friends and I did a book group for this, but then life got in the way and we never got to finish it. So I finally finished it in February, and I actually really enjoyed it. I want to read to you a little bit about what's on the back of it so you can have an idea what it's about. Do you long to leave an incredible mark in this world? Do you feel an urgency in your spirit to live with more intention? Does the thought of using your time and talent to create something extraordinary or of lasting impact make your heart beat faster? To do work that not only deeply fulfills you but meets a deep purpose in others. Penduka is an invitation to wake up your soul and wholeheartedly live the life you were created for. It's a call to awaken your passion, ignite your purpose, and embrace the beautifully messy process. So I did start this, like I said, last year, I think in March, maybe May, somewhere around that time, and it took me quite a while to get through it, only because I was slowly reading it with friends, but I did finish it this last month. I did give it a 5 out of 5 because I feel like there was a lot in this book that really helped me, but also this is the book that really reignited my passion for writing, and I feel like I could thank this book a lot for making me remember what it is I loved about writing and for getting that excitement back when it came to that. So this is one of the books that I finished in February. All the rest of the books I finished in February are very typical me. They are YA fantasy books because that's what I love and those are my favorite. The first book in that subject is Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This takes place in a land where there are Frostbloods and Firebloods, and right now the Frostbloods rule the kingdom. We follow our main character Ruby, who is actually a Fireblood, who lives with her mom in a remote village outside of the kingdom, trying to hide because Firebloods aren't really popular in this area. They're actually either killed or they're taken to prison where they're made to fight for the king's entertainment. As most luck would have it, she is found out, however, and the king's men come to get her. In the process, her mother is killed and she is taken off to prison, where she starts to decide that she is going to kill the Frost King and basically kick him off his throne no matter what it takes. In the process of that, of her scheming and revenge, 2 people come and rescue her from the prison because they have the same idea in mind. They want to dethrone the Frost King. So this book is really them and their plot to remove the Frost King from the throne and what happens during that time. In the first half, you have a lot of world building, you have a lot of history, and you learn a lot about the legends that have taken place in this kingdom, and a lot of it ties into our main character and her roots. During this first part of the book, she's learning how to use her powers as a Fireblood because that will play a huge part in her helping to get the Frost King off of the throne. The second half of the book, though, was totally different from the first, full of action and just there's a few new characters that you get to meet who I loved, and there's a little bit more romantic chemistry that you see in the second part, and overall, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads, but the more I think about it, I think I'm leaning more towards 4.5, because even when I think about it now, after I've read it and it's been about a month, I think of parts that I really liked, and I feel like it's staying with me longer than I thought it would, so I think I'm going to bump it up to a 4.5, but overall, I highly recommend this book. The next book that I read in February was Carville by Stephanie Garber. This was probably one of my top anticipated reads for 2017 as a whole, not just in the spring. So imagine my surprise and my excitement when this was in my January Fairy Loot box. So this is the UK edition, and in case anyone is curious, I'll show you what cover I got. I did get the clock. It is my least favorite, but it's still beautiful and I still love it. I'm contemplating getting the rest of the covers because they're also beautiful and because I love the book. So Carville is about a traveling circus carnival show that takes place around this island where the 2 sisters who are the main characters live. So Scarlett and Tella are the main characters of this book, and they live with an abusive father, and before we know it, he is promising Scarlett off to marriage to a duke she's never met, when all they've wanted their whole life was to see Carville. Carville. They get a little risky and they run off to see Carville with this mysterious new sailor who's in town. When they get to the island of where Carville is, Tella is kidnapped, and we find out that she is part of the game, that she is actually the person everyone has to find at the end to gain the prize, which is one wish from Legend, who is the master of Carville. So the main thing, or this underlying warning of this whole book, is remember it's just a game and that you're not supposed to believe anything you see or hear. But that's not just part of the game. Stephanie Garber makes it very clear that you're not supposed to believe anything you read in here till you get to the end and it's solved. I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5. I wish I could have given it 10. I really highly enjoyed this book. From the minute it started until the very end, it really keeps you on your toes. You're always wondering and second guessing every single character in this book. There's not a character, except for maybe Scarlet, who you can understand if, are they a good guy? Are they a bad guy? What are their intentions here? Like, you never really know. And I think that's really cool that you don't know until the end. This book is very whimsical, very fun, and I feel like time has a big thing to do in this book. You play the game at night and then during the day you're supposed to be sleeping, and so I felt like time really played a huge effect in this book of where it almost stopped during the game. And I feel like it stopped a little bit for me while I was reading it because I blew through this in like a day, and so it was super quick of a read, but it was so fun because it sucks you right in. If you like anything that's got whimsical fun, a little bit of mystery and intrigue, a touch of romance, not much but a little bit of romance, and this really great sister bond, then you would really like this book. But if you've not read Carville yet, you really need to. It was amazing. The next book that I read in February was Cricket Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Now, before I go too much into this book, I have to give you guys a little bit of backstory about this. I wasn't making videos at the time, but in January and December, I actually read all of the Grisha trilogy and Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I am total Grisha trash now. I love them so much. The Grisha trilogy was probably one of my favorite trilogies that I've read in the last year and a half, and I really, really loved it. I loved the characters. I am a huge Darkling fan. I know I'm in the minority for that, but I love him anyway, so I don't care what anybody else says. I love him. And then when I read Six of Crows, I flew through it. It was amazing. So, so good. And so I can't tell you a ton about this without telling you much about what happens in the end of Six of Crows, so I don't want to spoil anything for you. So what I'm going to do is I will be doing a separate review on the two of those on the full duology, and I'll let you know what they're about, but also my thoughts, and there will be spoilers, so I'll fill that with lots of fun stuff in there. But like I said, this is book 2 in the Six of Crows duology, and what you find out is in the first book, so Six of Crows, there are these 6 characters. It's like a crew who's ran by the main character, I guess you could say, Kazbrecker, and he is hired to do this job, this impossible heist. He has to break into the Ice Palace and steal something to return to the person who hired him. And basically that whole first book is them preparing for the heist, trying to accomplish the heist, and then at the end, depending on if it goes through or not, what happens after the fact. And it was amazing. It kept you on your toes all the time. It was in dual perspective, or I should say multi-perspective, because it was from all the main characters, and I really liked that. I can be kind of picky when it comes to people who do multi-perspective books, but I think Leigh Bardugo did a really good job with that, and she didn't make it to where it was repetitive. So, not at all with these books, and I think she did really well with that. So Cricket Kingdom basically takes place after the events of the first book, and there's a whole new world of trouble for these guys now, and it's possibly even more intense for this book than it was in the first one, which I didn't think was possible, but it was. I will say this though, this was the first book that I started in February, but it was one of the last ones I finished. I started this one on February 3rd, but I knew I was meeting Ellie Blake and Stephanie Garber a few weeks later, so I wanted to go ahead and read Frostblood and Carville, but then it ended up taking me about 15 days to pick this one back up. I had read that this has a really heartbreaking ending, and I was scared. I was terrified for my babies. I did not want to finish this book and have it be over and have them be hurt. So I put it off long enough. Finally, I finished it, thanks to my friend Amanda, who kind of pushed me to do it, and I'm glad that I did. It was a very bittersweet ending. There is a little bit of heartbreak at the end when something happens, but then there's other things that come into place where other characters' relationships and friendships and family relationships are kind of mended, and there's a peace, and there's just good stuff that happens at the end that you're just like, okay, I guess it evens out, and you know, it ended probably the best way it could have. And so overall, I really enjoyed this book, this whole duology. I gave them both a 5 out of 5 because they are amazing. Leigh Bardugo is queen, and I just love her writing so much. So if you've not read this duology or the Grisha trilogy, I highly recommend them. But I really like them, so there we go. The last book that I read in February, technically I finished on March 1st, but I read most of it in February, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it in this wrap up just to be safe, and that was TruthWitch by Susan Dennard. This book was one that I've had on my radar since I first entered BookTube, and I have been wanting to read it for a while, but then in January, I got to meet Susan Dennard at a book signing, and I bought Witch, and so I bought this one, and I knew I had to read this first, clearly, and I'd heard great things about both of them, so I figured why not pick it up now. This is a book about two girls who live in the witchlands, and one of them, Safi, is a truth witch, which means she can tell when someone is lying or being deceiving, and then there's Isiel, her thread sister, so her best friend, who is a thread witch, and she can see the way that people's threads are intertwined with each other and their emotions, and she can just see everyone's threads that they bear. When we come in to meet these girls in the beginning of the story, it's coming to the end of the 20-year truce that this kingdom has really had after a really horrific war, and so there's a lot of political talks about if this truce is going to be renewed, and then also what could happen if they go back to war. So we're kind of on the brink of it during this book. From the start of this book, you are on the go. It reminded me a little bit of Carville when it came to the pacing of it, because it's super quick all the way through, and I feel like it just starts right off from the front and you're off running. And I really enjoyed this book. I will say that the one thing that I maybe knocked it down a little bit for was there was so much detail. So many different kinds of witches, which reminded me a little bit of how many Grisha types there are in the Grisha world. And then there were so many different lands and regulations in each land, and just all these different characters. And it wasn't that I couldn't keep the characters of the witches straight, it was all the talk of the different cities and the lands and the different parts of the treaty and who attacked who and who's bordered up to where, and just all this kind of stuff made it a little bit difficult for me to follow. But I did go onto Susan Dennard's website and kind of look at her cheat sheet, I guess you could say, which I will link down below for anyone who's read this or hasn't read this and wants to know where it is. It really helps me to understand. Now, I don't think you should have to do that to read a book, so that's kind of why I knocked it down a little bit. But after I did that, I understood a lot more about the lands and the way this kingdom ran once I read all the stuff from the cheat sheets. This book really is a great book about friendship. Safi and Iz are just friendship goals. They are awesome. Like, it talks about how true a thread sister or a thread brother, the relationship is there between them, and it really stands out with these two girls. It's amazing how close they are, how much they care for each other, and how they just really look out for each other. There are other characters who've come in. I love Merrick's aunt and her interaction with Iz. I think that they have a great relationship building there. I really loved Merrick. I loved Merrick a lot, like right at the beginning. And then there was a few little sections of the book where I'm like, okay, stop being like Kale. Knock it off. I still liked him, and at the end of the book I feel like he kind of redeemed himself a little bit, and I liked that. Then we have the Blood Witch. I think his name is Adwan. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Let me know down below how to say that. But I get a very big Darkling feel from him to an extent, and I'm digging it. I'm really digging it. I like him. I like him a lot. And we just found out that book 3 is going to be Blood Witch, which is super exciting. That comes out next year, I think January of 2018. So I have definitely a long time to wait between this one and Witch and that one, but I'm really excited for it. Overall, I liked this book. I'm picking up Witch next because I liked it so much. And if you guys have read this, let me know down below who your favorite character was and what you think of this book, because I'm seeing a little bit of mixed reviews, and I'm just curious to see what you guys have to say. So here we go, guys. Here are the 5 books that I read in February. Thank you so much for being patient and waiting around for me to put up some content. If you guys don't follow me on my other social medias, please check them out below. I am much more active on Twitter and Instagram than I was on here, and I would love to still interact with you guys and talk books. Let me know if you read any of these books down below, what you thought of them, or if you plan to read them, which one you're most excited for. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about them and see if you love them as much as I did. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys, and until my next video, I'll see you later.